Welcome back to Ultimate Movie Recaps. Thanks for supporting us. Today I am showing a 2022 historical action thriller film titled Sisu. Watch out for the spoilers, just enjoy and take care. As the movie starts, we are informed that the Second World War is nearing its conclusion. The Moscow Armistice, signed between Finland and the Soviet Union, decreed that Finland break diplomatic ties with Germany and expel or disarm any German soldiers remaining in Finland. This led to the Lapland War due to the retaliation of the Germans. The Nazis employed a scorched earth policy, in which they obliterated all infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and human settlements, as they were retreating. Former Finnish commando Korpi decided to leave the war behind him in the remote wilderness of Lapland. He keeps panning for gold beside the river, accompanied by his faithful dog and a strong horse. One day, he discovers a tiny speck of gold that serves as evidence that he is on the right path. Now that he has proof, Korpi starts digging holes all over the region while ignoring all the jets that fly above him, which are headed to a war that does not bother him anymore. He cries with joy after discovering a proper gold deposit after many days of digging futile pits. He separates the massive deposit into a substantial number of nuggets and conceals them within his tent, staying up the entire night to ensure that no one steals him. The following morning, Korpi places all of the gold in a bag before mounting his horse and riding away, with the dog following closely behind him. After a few hours, Korpi notices a group of Nazi soldiers under General Bruno's command. They possess a lethal tank with them, in addition to it, a truckload of kidnapped women, who are exploited by Bruno's deputy, Wolf. After exchanging a glance with Bruno, Korpi simply continues his journey while paying no attention to anyone else around him. When Wolf wants to shoot Korpi, Bruno prevents him by pointing out that the man is riding to his death anyway. As Korpi continues to ride down the road, he starts coming across all the dead bodies that the Nazis have left behind, but this does not bother him the least. Eventually, he encounters a vehicle with 4 additional soldiers, who command him to dismount. They examine the sacks and discover the gold, believing they can keep it, so Korpi begins to plan ahead and commands his dog to flee. One of the soldiers attempts to shoot the dog. Fortunately, the animal swiftly moves out of the way. Next, the soldier calls Korpi Grandpa and attempts to shoot him, but Korpi quickly stabs him in the head with his dagger, killing him instantly. The other soldiers attempt to fight him in retaliation, but Korpi is quick and engages them in hand-to-hand combat, stabbing them with his dagger and using their bodies as shields when someone attempts to shoot him. When the last soldier attempts to attack him from behind, Korpi twists his arm and shoots him to death with his own gun. Bruno and the others hear the gunfire and return to investigate, only to discover the carnage on the ground and Korpi missing. When Bruno examines one of the bodies, he discovers a gold nugget concealed in a soldier's pocket and determines they should pursue Korpi. A few moments later, the Nazis discover Korpi on the road, whereupon the tank opens fire on him. Korpi prompts his horse to increase its speed and successfully avoids all incoming fire, only to enter a minefield by accident. Bruno instructs his men to halt the fire and joyfully waits for Korpi until he steps on a mine, since he feels it is an easy win. However, the horse absorbs the majority of the blast, leaving Korpi wounded but still alive. He awakens with a dizzy head and bids farewell to his horse before preparing to undertake a counterattack. As the Nazis approach, Korpi first gathers up the gold that fell from his bag. Bruno stops his trucks and waits for Korpi to finish so that his men do not have to jeopardize their lives by picking the gold themselves. When Korpi completes his task, Bruno gives orders to his soldiers to shoot, but Korpi is prepared as well. In addition to the gold, he also picks up a rock and throws it at a mine, which causes it to explode. The smoke that is produced serves as effective cover, and when the Nazis begin firing, Korpi uses his panning plate as a shield to protect himself. After a few minutes of aimless firing, Bruno sends a young soldier to check on Korpi, but the soldier gets struck by a mine on his face, causing the mine to explode and killing him. Later Bruno dispatches 2 soldiers to proceed along the sides of the road, but both of them immediately step on mines. They discover that Korpi is no longer there after the wind has cleared the smoke. Bruno, who is interested in pursuing him, gives orders for 2 ladies to walk ahead as a safety check. Wolf selects the women who appear to be the most terrified. This makes Ino take on the position of a volunteer. In the meantime, Bruno continues to search the area and comes across Korpi's dog Tag. After a few moments have passed, the gang continues to go forward while the 2 women are restrained in front of the vehicles. Bruno uses the radio on the tank to inquire about Korpi, and he receives some disturbing news in response. Their superiors tell him that they should halt pursuing him and that they are lucky to be alive. It has come to light that Korpi was the most dreaded commando in the history of Finland, and nobody wanted to get into trouble with him. As a result of serving in the Winter War and suffering the loss of both his house and his family at the hands of the Russians, he evolved into a merciless and vindictive soldier who obeyed no one's instructions. The Finns stopped trying to discipline or regulate him and instead sent him out into the woods all by himself to hunt Russian patrols. According to reports, he has become a one-man death squad and is responsible for the deaths of over 300 Russians. His name, Kache, means the immortal in their language. Bruno is not frightened by the story, and he has no intention of stopping his search for Korpi. Bruno wants the gold to buy his way out of his punishment, given that it is abundantly clear that the Nazis are losing the war. Meanwhile, Korpi keeps walking until he approaches a burned truck with a body inside. After using it as cover, he moves behind it, lies down, and begins to nurse his wounds by removing any bullets with his knife and concealing the holes with dirt. Suddenly, his dog appears, but the poor guy maintains his obedience and stands back to observe Korpi from a distance. After a while, Korpi is able to fall asleep, but a disturbance in the neighborhood jolts him awake a few hours later. The Nazis arrive, and they possess dogs trained to locate Korpi, based on the scent he left behind. After instantly taking cover underneath the burnt vehicle, Korpi watches the Nazis go past while being aware that the Nazi dogs are on their path. He waits until the very last truck passes by, then he rolls beneath it and promptly grabs onto it so that he can be transported along with it. After that, he pierces the fuel tank, and the falling gas now gets in the way of the dogs' noses, making it hard for them to continue tracking his scent. However, after the soldiers stop for a while to formulate a new strategy, Korpi makes an attempt to flee the area. Unfortunately, the dogs see him right away and start barking to alert everyone about his presence. Bruno decides to send the dogs to chase Korpi, and at the same time, a soldier shoots him in the leg. However, Korpi continues to flee even after the injury. When the dogs try to approach Korpi, he doesn't think twice before lighting a match and starting a fire on his gas-soaked garments to frighten them away. Later, the troops charge to pursue him, and without any option, Korpi jumps into the lake to escape them. Bruno orders his troops to wait until Korpi comes out to breathe, which can take a considerable amount of time due to the fact that he has extraordinary lungs. When Korpi's head finally breaks the surface of the water, the troops open fire without hesitation, and the blood that splashes over the surface of the water leads them to believe they have killed him. In the hopes of finding the treasure, 3 soldiers board a boat and row all the way to the center of the lake. On the other hand, as soon as a soldier enters the water, Korpi ambushes him from behind and slays him with his knife. Bruno sends the second soldier underwater when he sees only blood coming to the surface, but once again, blood appears. The third soldier is supposed to go next, but he is afraid and begins to flee in the boat. Wolf decides to shoot him because he thinks it is a form of betrayal. This gives Korpi the opportunity to seize the body and use it as cover while he runs away, which makes the soldiers fire their weapons in vain. At that very moment, Korpi's dog appears and begins to sob because it is unable to swim across the river to join its master. However, Bruno is already formulating his next move. After a long walk, Korpi finally reaches the closest town, but he is disappointed to discover that it is in the midst of flames against the backdrop of the night sky. Because he is too exhausted to continue, he decides to take a break inside a wrecked gas station and attempts to sleep despite the pain he is experiencing in his leg. However, the discomfort causes him to experience images of the day he lost his family. Unfortunately, as soon as he is finally able to fall asleep, a dog's barking immediately wakes him up. When Korpi goes outside to reunite with his dog, he is shocked to find that the canine's collar is rigged with an active dynamite stick. He quickly takes it from the dog and throws it, but the explosion knocks him to the ground. After that, Bruno, Wolf, and the tank driver shoots to find him, and they bring some rope with them so that they may tie him up to a signboard. Korpi never utters a word, as a sign of respect for such a formidable adversary. Schütze takes off his hat. Bruno and Wolf quickly imitate his behavior. Before they leave with the bag of gold, Bruno makes fun of Korpi by putting a nugget in his pocket, saying for his troubles. After they leave, Korpi continues to be defiant, and, in order to hold his body stable, he steps on a nail that is attached to the pole. He then goes to the extreme of pressing his leg wound onto a second nail. In spite of the fact that it is painful, it is the only thing that will keep him alive through the night, and his dog continues to remain next to him until morning. A plane lands next to the station in the morning, and the resulting vibrations force Korpi to fall to the ground. 2 pilots come out seeking gas, and one of them comes upon Korpi and the dog. The second pilot orders him to kill them both, but when the man hesitates, Korpi kicks him in the legs. The man falls and dies when his head collides with some debris. As the dog barks persistently, the second pilot comes to check on them, which provides Korpi with the opportunity to ambush him from behind and knock him out with a brick. When Korpi realizes there is no longer any chance for him, he tries to bury the nugget Bruno gave him. However, just as he is about to do so, the second pilot begins to move, indicating that he is still alive. After coming to the conclusion that the pilot could be of service to the plane, Corpy takes his gold back in order to formulate a strategy. While the pilot watches in terror, Corpy starts removing all of the bullets and pieces of metal from his wounds. After that, he cauterizes the wounds with fire, closes them up with wire, and then cleans the wounds with gas. Later, he and the pilot get on the plane and take off, but they don't take the dog with them. While the Nazis continue their journey, they come across a downed aircraft blocking the path. When Wolf and Schütze get close to the aircraft, they discover that the pilot is already dead inside, but unexpectedly, Wolf's rope is around his neck. Bruno orders his soldiers to leave right away after concluding that Corpy had set this trap and realizing how terrifying he is. Ino giggles when she overhears the conversation between the two soldiers who are traveling in the truck. She explains that they will be unable to accomplish something that hundreds of Russians have died attempting. In Finnish, they call it sisu, which is a term that means unflinching fortitude and inconceivable determination. As Corpy never quits, Ino believes that all of the Nazis will soon be dead. Then, all of a sudden, one of the soldiers drops dead, and as soon as the other looks outside, he is pulled out of the vehicle and falls to the ground, where he is run over by the approaching tank. Ino makes an attempt to seize the weapon from the fallen soldier, but right at that moment, Corpy comes into the truck and takes the weapon. When he realizes they are innocent victims, he gives the weapon to Ino to keep it. Following this, Corpy ascends to the top of the truck, where he stabs the driver through the roof and then pulls the driver's body out of the truck so that Ino can take control of the vehicle. After that, she maneuvers the truck closer to the tank so that Corpy may climb on top of it. When the people in the tank begin to become suspicious, the girls use the dead body as a puppet to make it appear as though everything is normal. After that, Ino drives the vehicle close to another truck that is carrying the majority of the soldiers. The girls instantly open fire and kill all of the soldiers, while Ino shoots the driver of the other truck. As the truck drifts away from the road, the people in the tank become aware of the impending danger and begin to move at a faster pace. Though Corpy is still on top, he begins to strike the door with his pickaxe. The tank suddenly stops, causing him to plummet. Wolf steps out from behind the tank to open fire on Corpy, but the latter swiftly climbs back to the top of the tank and begins to engage with Wolf in hand-to-hand combat. Both of them end up falling to the ground after exchanging a number of vicious blows with one another, and the tank drives off with only Bruno and Schütze on board. Even though Corpy hits Wolf a few more times, he is unable to kill him since two more soldiers arrive on a bike. As soon as they see Corpy, they recognize him and flee immediately. Wolf has a momentary false sense of being safe as Corpy takes the motorcycle to chase after the tank. However, just at that moment, the armed ladies arrive to exact their vengeance on Wolf. Finally, the tank pulls over to meet with a pilot who has a plane that can fly, but the plane can only accommodate one passenger at a time. Bruno doesn't think twice about killing Schütze, and he and the pilot try to escape on the plane. However, all of a sudden, Corpy appears on the bike, and he begins firing immediately. He is only successful in shattering the windows before the plane takes off. So he drives underneath it while holding his pickaxe high. Bruno looks down and sees that the bike is moving. He immediately concludes that they have left Corpy behind, but in reality, bike is empty. It is revealed that Corpy is clinging to the plane with the assistance of his pickaxe. He comes dangerously close to falling while he is trying to switch positions, but he is able to maintain his grip on a wheel and starts making his way inside by punching a hole in the floor of the bomb room using his pickaxe. Bruno decides to look into the matter on his own because he doesn't believe the pilot's explanation that the aircraft's age is the cause of the noises. As soon as Bruno opens the door, Corpy leaps on him, and immediately a fight begins between the two of them. Both of their punches and kicks are quite cruel, and despite the fact that Corpy is the more competent fighter, Bruno is able to defeat him due to the fact that he is seriously injured. Bruno loses his cool as a result of Corpy's refusal to give up or scream, and this makes him use a static line to beat Corpy with more force, while simultaneously wondering why Corpy doesn't die. When he makes an attempt to score a quicker strike with the metal end of the line, Corpy catches it in his hand and attaches it to the bomb before letting it go. Bruno is dragged down with the bomb, and both immediately detonate upon impact with the ground. Corpy wants to rest, but suddenly the plane starts trembling and dropping. However, it was discovered that the pilot had been shot by a stray bullet earlier, and he could not survive the injuries he sustained. In an effort to keep himself alive, Corpy snatches the gold and fastens himself just before the plane plunges into the marsh, causing another explosion. In the meantime, a Finnish unit prepares to launch an assault after seeing an incoming German tank, but it turns out that Ino and the girls are the ones who brought Wolf and tied him to the cannon. Back at the swamp, Corpy survives the crash, thanks to the water, and he comes out with the help of his pickaxe while still holding the bag of gold. A few days later, Korpi and his dog travel to the city of Helsinki on the Nazi bike. He walks inside the bank, where everyone is terrified of his appearance, and he drops all the nuggets on the front desk before requesting big bills because they will be easy to carry. This marks the end of the movie, and thanks for watching.